Welcome back to Restoring Reality Homestead, where a couple of years ago I lost my dad, and I've been spending all my extra time and effort to fixing the house up for my mother. In this, we are documenting the journey, and I hope that we can help you come along with yours as well. Welcome back, everybody, to Restoring Reality Homestead. So today we're going to do a little break because the weather changed. It's springtime now, so it's time to start up the cooler. Now, here in Southern California, we live in the Mojave Desert, and we don't depend on air conditioning. We have swamp coolers, so it's not common across the United States. It's just common to the desert areas where it's nice and dry. So I'm going to show you exactly what it takes to start one up and replace some pads. So here we go. All right, everything that you're going to need here. I got my bag of tricks. Here's my cooler oil, and it's got the zoom spout. I got all my my little different size wrenches, or not wrenches, but sockets and whatnot. And then a vacuum, because this is going to get really messy and we need to clean it up, and we don't want all that shenanigans going inside the house. And then I've got the brand new set of pads. Alright, so as you can see, when I shut this down, I like to wrap it up with some cellophane as well. And that just keeps the cookie sheet from rattling when the wind blows, because we're in a desert, it's dry. Get a lot of wind anytime that there's a little fluctuation in the temperature. Alright, so here's my little tool I use for the self-tapping screws on this lid. Since we're replacing the cooler pads, we're just going to go ahead and start there. I'm going to pull this lid off. There's a grate over here for the intake. I'm going to take that off, and then the pads will be right there. I don't have one with me today, but if you've got a little cup to keep all these screws in, because you're going to end up with quite a few, it's probably best just in case you don't want it rolling off the roof. All right, I don't know what happened here, but for some reason these pads just collapsed. They weren't that old, just a few years, and we can typically get at least like 4 or 5 years out of these things. So this, by the way, is an Aerocool Trophy Series. So I guess now we tear this sucker apart. So this hose right here goes down and connects to the water pump. I need to remove that in order to take that off, and then we can get that out of the way and we can move the pads. Alright, so there's the water reservoir, and so that fills up with water. There's the float right there. that shuts off the water. The water goes down and hooks into a hose that's down there. I'll show you when I go to turn it on. We have to get all of this cleaned up. And this is screwed on here, so I gotta unscrew that real quick. Alright, so this cooler pump has been submerged from about right there. So all of this has been underwater. What I like to do is I like to just spin these just to make sure they're free before we start them up. So this one's good. It better be, because last year I ended up replacing it. And this little basket here is what it sits in, and this actually keeps all the debris that may end up in the water from getting sucked up by the motor. They're not always plastic. Sometimes they can be a little net, and that works just fine too. Right, so this little box right here, this controls the motor, and it also controls the pump. The motor has a specialized plug that you can't just use for anything. But the pump has a regular 120 outlet plug. So typically what I'd want to do is go inside the house and turn on the thermostat. That activates everything. So then I can plug my vacuum into that receptacle, and then I can use it on here. My vacuum will not fit on there because apparently it doesn't receive the wide end. The wide end, see how this one is wider than that one? Well, that's not designed that way. Why, I don't know. So I just had to get an extension cord, plug it on an outside outlet down on the ground, and then string it up here. So here we go. Alright, so you can see it's not showroom quality, but I got as much of that stuff out of there that I could. And so now this will fill up with water and it'll be semi-clean water. I even vacuumed back in here a little bit, and there's no water that sits over there. That's just where the air cabin is, whatever you want to call it. Alright, so while you've got access to this entire cabin, I went ahead and put the water pump back inside its basket and plugged it in up there. Now what I'm gonna do is check the belt, make sure the belt's in good condition, there's good tension on it. You really don't want it all that tight, because if you tighten it too much, it'll put too much pressure on this. This is the squirrel cage right here. And these are your spider gear, or your, I think they're called, yeah, squirrel gauge and spider brace or something like that. I don't even know. But we're going to check all this. And then right back in here, you can see that little flip cap. We just flip that back, and that's where the oil goes. And it oils these bearings right here underneath it. So this is what it's talking about, zoom spout. Just so you can get back in there and get this sucker in the hole. And now you just squeeze until it comes out of the hole, like that. And then you get the other side, and as soon as you get the other side, this will have settled a little bit, and you can add a little bit more and then back to the other side. And since we're back on this side again, we have all this space. Let's go ahead and take advantage of it. This is the overflow. And there's a little spot down here that comes underneath to a drain. It's to prevent all of this calcium buildup, but every once in a while you have to readjust some stuff. Don't need any electrical, don't need any Teflon tape or anything. You just put this in here, nice and tight. With the hand, it's fine. And you'll see that it's gonna hold just fine. Now, we've got all this cleaned up. We've got this on here. Let's go ahead and put these pads back in. I stand corrected. Paperwork did say. And this little groove right here is supposed to go on the air exit side, which is the inside of the cooler. And you can see that it says so on the bottom. Yep. Right, okay, so those are in. Now these suckers go on top. There are two of them. And this comes with styrofoam. So the styrofoam, if we go down the side and fill in any type of air gas. And it looks like we are only going to need the one. So now what we're going to do is put it all back together. So this little foam piece came off. I don't think it's going to hurt it to not be there. So I'm not going to worry about it. But I am going to make sure that this slides all the way over my pads. So yeah, we're back to hooking everything up. So everything that you took apart, you're gonna put back together in reverse order. So we gotta hook the pump back up. Oh, and the fit on this. This just sits right over the top of the cap. I mean the pad. Kind of like a little cap. So we're gonna hook up that hose. And then we had another little 1/4-inch hose. I don't know if you could see it. Yeah, it's right behind that one. So that got plugged into this little joint right here. And that actually helps purge and keep the water fresh. But in addition to all of that, we need scale eliminator. I like these ones right here because, I mean, they're in a little bag. They're nice because you just toss them in the water. You don't toss them in the basket. They got to be in the water. And then they just sit in there. And you want to replace them every couple months. So probably 2 months. Come out here. And I always keep a couple extra in here. Come out here and swap them out. That keeps the pads good in good working order. And helps you to get the most out of your machine. Right, so you remember me discussing about the cookie sheet. Right behind this guard right here is the cookie sheet. And this is what blocks all of the wind and air from passing into the house. So now the house is open to the elements. Through this, of course. So then you're going to take this and you're going to store it someplace safe. Mine will go in my shed, but some people keep them inside their cabin here. And it's whatever you prefer. Right, so everybody's is different, but the way that this cooler is set up is, this is my line that goes into the cooler with that float, and it goes right down here. So I'm just going to open this up, and then we will have water filling into the cooler. Now, the one thing you want to remember is open it up all the way. Right, so this is where it's handy to have 2 people. Otherwise, there's a lot of up and down on the roof. But I came inside to explain that this is the thermostat. This is what activates the outlet inside the cooler. And ours is digital. So ours is digital, and what we want to do now that the water is on is we want to turn the pump only. Let's see. Okay, so I can't remember how to do this. So we're going to do the pump and fan, and then system is going to be on low. Now, it's not going to come on right away because we have to adjust the temperature settings. And there it was. The pump is starting to work. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to turn this off. And my partner is going to go ahead and help me make sure that everything is running correctly. Right, so now we're back up on the roof and we're making sure that the float turned off the water, and it will. And now, gotta come over here, make sure that it's not above my overflow. And it doesn't seem to be. Quite low, actually. That's good. So now we're just gonna holler down at our partner, and we're gonna make sure that the pump is actually pumping the way it's supposed to. All right, go ahead. All right, you heard it click on. And so now we should be having water pump over the pads behind here. And I'm just making sure that, yep, I see some right there, and none of it's spilling on the outside. So looks like we're in business. And now we just need to wait for the cooler to turn on, which should take about 2 minutes, maybe 5. But I'm looking here and it looks like there's a little water, so I need to find out where we're leaking from. I'll be right back. Right, so we're in business. That wobble on that belt, it's kind of normal. Don't worry about it. But what it's doing is it's pulling air through that pad. When I shut all these, it'll pull air through the, she just shut it off. But it's gonna pull air through those pads and then force it down inside the house. And we have to put these panels back on the sides, and that's what seals it all up and makes it go through the pad. So there we go.